Okay, so I've been posting some videos on flourishing as there is a new flourishing workshop that I'm doing coming up. And I thought that I would take a look at some of the comments because people were asking lots of questions, and I thought, oh, maybe a little bit more information would be good. Obviously, if you find this information useful, either join the live class, which is on the 15th and 16th of March, which is actually tomorrow, or get the class once it's up because the recording will be available. Now, I'm going to do a couple exercises to show you some of the things that I do in order to make flourishing a little bit more straightforward and simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my sheet out. So this is one of the PAScribe grids. It is a 6mm grid with a 55-degree line, and that 55-degree line is every 30 millimeters. So this is a grid that I've used for a very long time. I use it in a ton of my work, and you generally see it underneath a sheet of paper. So I'm working on a Fabriano Traccia pad. It's recently out. It's a great paper to work with, but it's not that easy to find yet. Fabriano are actually working on it. I've spoken to them about getting it to the UK and to Canada and the US. So they said it's going to take roughly till the end of 2025, beginning of 26 to try and sort all of that out. Right, so we'll start with some pencil work. I'm using a Viarco 6B art graph pencil, and I'm using the Kum Germany sharpener. Now, this is an amazing sharpener because usually I would take my sharpener, I would tilt it, and I would sharpen with the pencil at an angle to try and get it shorter. And this hole on the sharpener is a shorter sharpen. So I get exactly what I want. And it really helps me with the kinds of lines I want to produce. A little bit more of a point on that. Now, I usually have a piece of sandpaper around. Here it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nick pencil on the sandpaper, like so. What that does is it gives me just a little flat edge just there. I'm going to use a combination of tilting onto the flat and the edge of the flat. Let's look at some basic exercises. So this is what I call the line of universal beauty loop. So it is a line of universal beauty, and it has a loop. So this allows us to do this, allows us to do, I'll go higher up because I am back over myself. You can see it allows quite a lot of patterns. And the next major pattern it does when we take these into consideration is a running pattern. Now, flourishing is very much like an alphabet, just how you have to learn an A, a B, a C, to then put them together to make words, and then to put those words together to make sentences. Flourishes are basically the same. So the way I teach flourishing is I teach basic line structure first, so you understand the different types of lines and the different types of flourishes. And then I use a word-based system, like writing a word, take those little elements and put them together. but you can't really put them together if you don't know what the elements are. You can't write a word if you don't know what those letters are and how they're written. More importantly, if you decide that you want to write a word with flourishing and variations, then you kind of need to know what those variations are. They don't just magically happen. They're not like people think you just wave your pen staff and magic happens on the page, and that's not how it works. You really do have to understand these shapes and how they work. Now, my flourishing principle is slightly different because I also use a very rigid geometric structure to help house the flourish, so that if your flourish is off by a little bit, you plot the geometry around it. It will help you to understand where you're going wrong. A little bit about that. So from this, I can plot some geometric structures around it, and we get this. We have the 55 down this way, this way. So my flourishes sit within this geometry. Now, the geometry is really quite simple. If we increase the size of this, see how the geometry really houses the shape, but also how the shape bisects this sort of pointed ellipse. Now, what you want to do, you want to start by understanding how circle turns into arithmetic spiral and into a logarithmic spiral. These spirals then help us to create either this or this. This is not guesswork. You don't know how to do this and you don't know how to do this, there's no way you'll be able to do this. Because you can't take something at an angle and make it if you don't understand what it's like, if it's right. Now let's take this simplistic understanding, because it's not that simple, and we're going to, you know what, let's do this with Nib ink. I'm using my own ink, new ink that's coming out soon, very, very thin, in a little bit. So as I said, I am using my own ink, very thin. I'm going to do that very simple flourish. So now take that simple flourish and create a run. This, all to flourish. And add some appended. Get this one. So now that you have a sense of these running patterns, let's try and understand why they're so. This allows me to this. That is the basis of the patterns you flourishing. So we can also start at the base. Now, notice this can dot in, and it's exactly this flourish, and it is exactly that line up there. So we can take that pattern and we can start like this, and we end round. So this type of flourish is really useful, like Fraktur or Technicalis. Now let's take that same flourish. Instead of doing it vertically, it works really well for things like Fraktur vertically. You can do it 5. Remember, writing a letter at 55. That means the letter dominant. Don't want the flourish to be heavy as the letter. Always do them in threes. There. That really generates a much